Welcome back, guys, to Chris and Retro. Tonight's video is going to be a little tough for me to get through and stay organized, but I think it was important to. I've got some points to make that I thought would be important for as I'm pondering them. Honestly, there are things I'm struggling with. I've heard some content recently produced about some of this stuff, and I thought maybe I'd connect with you guys and open up the discussion with you as well. And perhaps you guys will have some comments in the comments that might further this discussion along in terms of how you choose to deal with the season we're going through. I'd say season. It seems to be the state of life that we live in, where the media and political agenda and all this stuff is just constantly being flooded. And I want to kind of pull back from that a little bit and come up with some thoughts here that I'm going to consider, and hopefully they'll give you a little bit of serenity as we go through the season. First, I want to give a shout out. I'm always calling out Mitch on this show, but Mitch from Hard Intentions. But I had ordered a shirt from him to replace a shirt that was one of my favorite shirts that got ruined, and he sent me a free one out. So, guys, please make sure you check out hardintentions.com. He's got some great apparel on there that's different than what you'll find anywhere else. Fits what I like, and he's also got some great artwork too. And he does some auctions live every now and then too. So check out his stuff. He's a good guy and has been incredibly supportive of this channel. So I would appreciate you guys reciprocating any way you can. So I think it's fair to say that we're heading into another chaotic season. Whether it's at first it was easy to say, okay, well, it's an election season. I'm not really sure where one starts and one ends anymore based on the issues that we choose to elect officials on and the issues that we choose to fight over. And so I'm going to try to address some of that stuff and stay on path. But I brought in a consultant tonight. I'm going to bring her up live here, and she, I think, sums up what's going on in the United States best, and I will share with you some of her commentary. This is Nova.
You a mess?
A mess.
You're a mess?
A mess.
Yes, you are. You a mess?
A mess.
You're a mess?
A mess.
So if that wasn't clear to you, she's saying that it's a mess. She said, I said, are you a mess? She says, a mess. That's my daughter. And yeah, we're a mess. And I think she's probably about the most intelligent person I could get on here that would best describe in the most concise way what the heck we're dealing with here. And it's more than peanut butter in our face from sort of eating a sandwich. We are constantly being divided, and we allow ourselves to be divided. As I pondered this topic tonight, there was really a bunch of things that I was thinking through it. First of all, some of it's my own anger, candidly. I mean, some of the stuff that's being shoved down my throat, I do not stand for. I mean, it's just not stuff that I stand for, but I'm being told that if I'm a good citizen or if I'm to be the right type of person, I've got to embrace, buy into, and almost become all this stuff that's being shoved down my throat. And honestly, it's not how I believe to live. I don't do it to other people. I tell people how things have gone for me, and I tell people what I believe in, but I'm not making anybody do anything. I don't think it works, but I'm feeling like in this world we're in that every stinking thing that's brought up is shoved down our throat. And it's always the thing that's constantly beat up in both sides of the news. And when I say both sides of the news, the biased news, which is biased both for the Republican or conservative side and the liberal Democratic agenda, it is biased on both sides. And recently, it's become more and more obvious they're driving a very similar agenda. And it's not just because of some high-profile firings. I know we jump on that bandwagon too. We can't seem to think through things anymore as a country, as individual voters representing our own stake in the game here in the United States. We all got to herd up, and we bump heads, and we get nothing done. Look at how much progress we make with, no matter what the swing is in our elected officials, they're always butting heads, and they're forcing us to do the same thing. You look at everything. I'm looking at a few things. Actually, what really prompted this video, I'll tell you. These are things I've been contemplating, but, I know you guys know Michael Franzese. Michael Franzese is a high-ranking official in the Bonanno crime family. He was, I hope I didn't misspeak on the Bonanno thing. That would be a bad thing, but I'm pretty sure he was Bonanno. His father was a high-profile mob guy, spent a lot of life in prison. Michael professes rehabilitation, as many guests I've had on here have, and he is evidence that there is rehabilitation, as many guests as I've had on here have as well. And he's now got a YouTube channel, but he also has many other things. He does speaking engagements and things like that. He's got his own businesses, everything from a pizza shop to a wine line, but he's also a professing Christian and does a lot of work around faith-based initiative as well. he's not one to really get into politics, and you'll find that many of us, including myself, don't really want to get into politics on these shows. But we're finding is that the crossover between what's being driven down our throats and how we need to live our daily lives in a healthy way is getting absurd. So he kind of had enough and was talking to his wife about it. And she says, you know what, why don't you do a video about it? And the other day he did a video that he put up. But I would encourage you to go take a look at Michael Francie's YouTube channel. He's got a couple of them, but the one that he does individually is a pretty decent channel. Pretty interesting, some of the stories he tells. But in this one video, he goes into two parts. The first part, he's going off about New York City doing vending machines for those that are struggling with substance use disorder in the street and giving them clean needles, Narcan. For those that don't know, that's what brings people back when they have an overdose from an opiate. And there's other clean products that are in there. I would imagine there's things like condoms and stuff like that in there. His contention is that they're just making it easier for a drug person to go out, a person that's doing drugs to go out and do drugs. And I would say that he's probably completely out of touch of that. And that's more of a moral judgment based on his Catholicism than it is about the actuality of the benefit of a thing like that. I am not a proponent of anything that makes people use one more day. And I can tell you that wholeheartedly with passion that I don't know how else to express it. You'll find nothing on this channel that I'll express more than, well, my love for my kids, my belief in God, and the fact that I cannot stand addiction. I would never do it. I would never be on here being a proponent of anything that keeps somebody in active use one more day. Those machines are there to help. There's a public health issue. HIV is not rampant through the drug community right now because of a lot of those types of things, those mitigating circumstances. There's a lot of other things that can go worse than just having a population that lives in a certain area struggling with addiction and mental health issues. There's many other things that can go wrong. There's a public health crisis that could expand exponentially if we're not making sure there's at least decent medical stuff for the things that they're doing, that they're killing themselves with. And that, if you don't agree with that position, I'm sorry, probably get closer to the addicted community and you understand why that's not ideal. Nobody wants to have those machines out there. But for those that aren't using, if you saw the other side of it, you'd probably be a lot more thankful for it. So in that part of the video, I didn't agree. However, the second part of the video, he's really pushing in on the fact that we're doing 1 month for Pride, recognition, and we're only doing a day for people like Martin Luther King and Washington and our veterans and those that labor all year long, and all this over and over again. He is frustrated with the fact that we're doing a full month, and again, that's coming from a very one-sided view of it. The point is that that's an area of contention, and it's gotten to a point that you take a non-political channel. He talks about how the mob structure does mirror a lot of what happens in politics. But beyond that, he's not really huge in terms of political rants. And this definitely was one. So you're seeing where people just generally are we're kind of all at it. We've all got an opinion. So what I'm going to try to do is get us to a common ground here the best I can, because there's going to be a lot of people that are watching this channel and some that actually have subscribed that wholly disagree with me. And I know that to be true because I've had some of those comments. We are completely opposite of what I believe to be okay and what they believe to be okay. But I believe also that we can be okay with each other and have those different belief systems. I'm going to share with you how I intend to approach this particularly heavy propaganda season, I would call it. And I want to do it by recognizing the reality of what it is that we're dealing with. We're dealing with media machines trying to get their money, their purses reelected into office. Wherever, I'm not getting any conspiracy on where that money's coming from or who's doing it or whatever. I don't know because I don't spend enough time with it. I really don't care. I know it's there. I know it's happening. For people a lot smarter than me, point that out consistently. So we know that there's nothing else but a biased message can come out from what we know to be a biased media. So we should start with recognizing that with anything that comes out of their mouth is going to be manipulation. It may not be an outright lie. It may be reporting an actual event, but the words used, the way that's angled is going to show us bias. I've actually done a video on this channel a while back. There was a Fox News station went down to Kensington. A number of people we know had brought Kensington to light. This person obviously had finally graced Kensington with her presence, even though she lives a few blocks away from where it is, as a news reporter. And they go through the news report and she meets one of the hopeless down there and has a conversation, and almost patronizing in a report out of it, they immediately go to China and Mexico. And now this is a Fox News station, so immediately China and Mexico are going to come up in every single thing they talk about. I'm not saying it's not part of the problem, but that should not have been the heart of a story talking about somebody that's struggling. It shouldn't have within 2 seconds turned to a political agenda. And that is just a small example in a very innocent story that should have been geared towards this young woman who's living in the street with an addiction. And I would wonder if they've ever gone back to see her again. So the bias is obviously there. I think we'd all agree with it. I don't think that any of us would argue. Some of us might be a little more blind to the fact that what we like to hear on our channel, so to speak, is more factual than the other channel. I don't know. I don't listen to any of them because I think they're all crap. I usually try to find people that are on free speaking channels. For the most part, YouTube has a lot of free speaking people, and I try to see what they have to say, and I also try to counter that with people that I don't always agree with to see what they're saying, and somewhere in the middle you'll find the truth. You know, we're being pushed between everything from transgender stuff with them trying to do these stinking dances in front of our kids, these drag dances in front of our kids, and justify that with anything under the sun, to saying that it's the same thing as, you know, parents not agreeing with Catholicism and the priests coming in all their robes. I don't see the connection, but I refuse to entertain that conversation because, yes, their argument is that the priests have done sexual improprieties to children all through the years, and I would agree, and I'm disgusted by that behavior, and it also plays heavily into what I believe about religion, and that's why I say I have a relationship with God, not a religion. At the same time, I don't want you driving this obviously adult entertainment program in front of kids. So we're torn with that based on that's now a propaganda thing because we're supposedly oppressing people by not agreeing with that. Guns. We're talking about guns in any variation. Now they're saying that guns are the number one killer of kids. The stat that they're using is from 0 to 19. And that 0 to 19 age, it could be everything from street violence that could be, you know, gang related and fatherless homes and mental health disorders to substance use disorders. It may not be the gun. The gun was used. In Rochester, people are getting stabbed too. They're getting hit by cars. They are getting shot. And there does something have to be done about guns. But again, the agenda is going to shift because now all of a sudden, when we care about kids, gun violence is the thing we care about kids, unless a very prominent liberal has been molesting children on an island for his entire adult life, and multiple prominent people from across the world were on those planes landing there, and this person magically dies in jail, and his girl is like hush hush, and none of the lists ever come out with anybody on there, and nothing is ever done with it. We don't care about kids then, but we do care when we want to get rid of guns. You can see that we're manipulated this way. Now, the flip side of it, I would say, now obviously I have conservative views. I'm supportive of a lot of the conservative values, but I would say I'm more an issues guy. So I don't agree with a lot of conservatives because they buy into a lot of the nonsense that I think is legalistic and fake. So for example, most people that I know that are walking around with their tattoos and their beards and their bald head and their, you know, whatever, this persona that they have and their guns, most of the guys I know, if there was a situation that was happening before them, I would argue they'd probably crap their pants before they'd squeeze that trigger. So I question, you know, if all these guns are actually saving anybody if push comes to shove. I don't know a lot of men that actually have it in them to do it. Now, I do know a lot of guys that do. And so for all you guys, you know exactly who you are. You're 100% legit. And the reason I know you're true is because you'll also smack somebody in the face, gun or no gun. So there's a fine line between it comes to the point where you got rhetoric and you actually have to do something about it. So I think the conservative side of thing has a whole bunch of people talking a lot of crap that they're not going to do anyway either. And they're trying to act like they want to defend their nation. Well, some of them will, but a lot of them pop it off won't. And that's just my opinion on it. I think a lot of them are just running their friggin' mouth to make them overcome whatever insecurities they have. We're being divided. You can see I have an opinion about this. So you start putting these opinions out in front of us and we're all going to be divided on these opinions. And then we're being told one side says you're dumb or whatever else. If you don't believe our side, the other side says you're dumb and ridiculous. I can't believe they think that way. If they're this way, of course, we're both criminals. So, you know, apparently Donald Trump supposedly representing all of us conservatives, which is not true. I support some of the stuff he's done, but I also know Donald Trump. You cannot build casinos through the Atlantic City area without having worked with the mafia at some point or another. You can't get building permits with the buildings he's built without having unions that were tied to the mafia be part of it. Look, let's get real. It's almost as cliche as Bugs Bunny and carrots. it's going to happen. And so he's never been clean with the stuff he's been going through. I just feel like that he represented us with actual balls that we haven't seen from other people. And so I co-sign that. But to see that he got himself jammed up and he had some skeleton in his closet that somebody could manipulate. Okay. Yeah. But there is a double standard because, the other side is also got now their legal stuff that's going on. And that doesn't seem to be getting the same prominence, even though it's of the exact same nature. Well, somebody's going to say, no, it's not the exact same nature. And they're going to give me crap about that too. And whatever. So you're seeing, I'm painting some pictures here for us. And the reason I'm painting these pictures is because we all have an opinion and we're all going to be really opinionated about it. And I promise you, if somebody was going to get aggressive with me about their opinion about something I don't agree with, I would 100% meet them where they're at with equal energy because I believe passionately about what I believe in. It's how I was raised. My dad is the exact same way. And I believe in who he is and how he represents himself. And that's how I believe to represent myself too. But it doesn't mean that every single time that something comes up that I don't agree with, that I should be that guy. Equal energy for the equal opportunity. If somebody's coming on you on social media about something, did you post something that was antagonistic? If you did, expect antagonistic responses. Otherwise, sit back and question the value of what you're posting. If it actually drives your agenda, does it get the elected official into office that you want? Does it change policy? Or does it just position you as a person that believes in this type of thing just so that you can feel good that you stood for that, what you believe in? And what is the value for that? Well, there might be value for you, but there also is going to be an equal and opposite reaction. And it's probably going to be something you don't like, and it's going to turn into all this nastiness. This is not a peace and love video, so don't get me wrong. I'm not asking people to lay down your arms. I'm not asking people to come together and kumbaya and hug, because there are certain people that if I was asked to hug them, I probably would, catch a charge because look, I'm not being peace and love about this. What I'm trying to do is say, I have mental health issues. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I can show you that with very little alcohol, I can ruin my life. So knowing that as I live my life in a better day, in a better way, I want to make sure that I'm creating for myself an environment that doesn't get me so spun up that I start thinking poorly. And what can get me spun up is people acting in antagonistic ways. So I have to look at what I can control. So as we look at the environment we're in, let's start asking ourselves some questions. First of all, we all agree media has an agenda. Whether it's corrupt or not, I'm not sure it's corrupt. I think it's just it's a false advertising program. It's pitching wares that, it's like selling a car that has no engine and says it does 200 miles an hour. It's just blowing smoke all the time. So I'm not really sure it's anything other than a money machine. So, know it for what it is and don't let that influence you. The other thing, I think we need to recognize what our elected officials are willingly doing. Think about this. Is there any elected official, anyone, that you 100% agree with every single thing that they stand for? Especially now. Now, you do not go backwards, because there's probably plenty that we would say backwards that were. But in the current environment, are there any that you would actually say, yes, I believe all of them, I'm 100% in? If it wasn't outside of the emotion that they're against something that you believe you're against. That's the qualifier. Because I know a lot of people that are Trump supporters and a lot of people that are Trump haters. But the Trump supporters many times are just because they can't stand the Trump haters. And so they do it. They amp it up a level to be antagonistic. And the Trump haters can't stand it because the Trump supporters believe in some rules to society. And so that environment is more kind of like lawless versus too many laws, boom, 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 crashing, or whatever you want, however what you want to slice it. But again, it goes back to Trump. I agree with some of the stuff he's doing. In fact, Chad Marks, make sure you watch Chad Marks' video. He actually does a video on the Trump whole sealed indictment, now unsealed. He has a pretty good take on that whole thing. So look at Chad Marks on Blood on a Razor Wire TV. I had him on here a couple weeks ago. Please make sure you watch his show on that. It's very good. Very, very good. For a living, he does legal work to get people life sentences, reduced time based on their actual proof of rehabilitation. But he's got a ton of knowledge about the whole federal system and a very good perspective on the Trump situation. So if you want to know more about that, he's a good one. But, I support Trump because Chad is now somebody I really respect and I interact with a frequent amount. And he's not free if it's not for Trump's programs. And so I look at Mitch Smiley with Hard Intentions. he's probably not free if years of Democratic policy that kept denying him parole, then if you demonstrate rehabilitation, these programs allow for you to have a compassionate release, and that program helped both of those guys out, and they're now aggressively changing lives for youth and starting to show them what the consequences. So there's value in what he has to offer, but the totality of that candidate, I'm not behind him. I'm not. I don't know who I'd be behind. So you ask yourself too, is there anybody out there that you'd be behind? None of them would I have marry my daughter. None of them would I have marry my sons. I got news for you. None of them. So what does that tell you? All right. So now the reason I make that point, and hopefully this is all starting to make sense to you, because I'm kind of going on a rant here and I know that, but I'm trying to get us to the culmination of all this. If you look at all these components, okay, so now we've got a media system that we don't trust. We know it's not true. And I come on, if you're going to argue with me about this whole thing, you're just trying to argue with me, because I think we all agree the media is screwed up. The second thing is, if you're going to tell me that you have a candidate that you 100% agree with that candidate, I'm going to show you a candidate you don't know anything about. Because to be at this position of power, you've compromised something of value to you along the way. There's no way you got there without compromising something. So I would say that we probably can agree that there isn't really a candidate out there that we all are 100% behind. So if we know that we don't trust the media and we don't really have anybody that we're really that far behind, and certainly not so far behind as a family member we love, our best friend, for those that were military guys, people that they were fought alongside, for MC culture, the guys that, we've reached out to recently here on the show, your brothers, my family, my kids, my very small circle of close friends, those are all people I'd stand beside, and I wouldn't replace any of those guys with or girls with any politicians that I know, well, except for one who's no longer a politician. He happens to be a friend. So we know that. So now why are we ripping apart our friendships, our communities, our schools, embarrassing our kids with their friends because parents are battling over crap? Why are we sitting, and I've had this happen to me, why are we sitting at a celebration for a graduation and making snarky comments to the person next to you because your perception is this guy must be a Trump guy because of how he looks? Why are we doing that and creating such chaos in our day-to-day life? For what? For what? You can still vote. You can still have your opinion. You can still work with elected offices. If you want to start doing flyers and whatever else, go for it. But why are we destroying interpersonal relationships? Because I would argue that most of the ones that are that antagonistic, neither side is moving. You're not convincing, you're fighting. And what is that doing for you? If you got a huge stamina for fighting all the time, good for you. I don't. I'm a burst guy. I'll hate you with everything in me for 45 seconds, and then I'm just so friggin' tired, I want to sleep. It doesn't stick for me. I'm an airbag. Super high temper, then it just goes away. I don't have the stamina for fighting with everybody every day, especially given the fact that my calling and my purpose does not align with me battling with people along political lines. I have to start accepting people that they're going to have different views. I have to accept them they're going to have different lifestyles. I don't have to live their lifestyles to accept that they have one different than me. What I do stand is along the line of protecting my family and providing the best I can for their future and making sure my vote counts in the way that I know best to vote. Making sure I'm informed. But destroying those around me and allowing my serenity every single day to be destroyed by what I hear, I cannot tell you how many people I know whose serenity is absolutely decimated every single day during this election season by something they've heard. That is completely absurd to me, and it couldn't possibly be why we're here. Couldn't possibly be our agenda. I'm sorry, our purpose. They divide us as groups, so we fight amongst ourselves, and the attention then goes away from the actual person candidate. Why do you think the two going head to head for elected office last year were in the eyes of crime? They had the air of crime around them that could possibly make them suspect in crimes. And now, there's still popular conversation. Of course, they don't want us to dig into who they are. They want us to fight about the issues they supposedly represent and divide us that way. I'm hoping that the point was made here. And I know I got a little bit more animated than I intended to. And this is certainly more animated than the last video because I started to think through things a little bit more. I have beliefs, 100% have beliefs. Some of the things I cited here, I am opposed to drag shows in front of children, and I don't give a crap if the parents approved it or not. I'm opposed to it. No questions asked. I'm also opposed to religious conversations with my children, trying to sway them one way or another that I don't know about. I'm opposed to children getting guidance to have a gender reassignment without the parents' consent. I'm opposed to that. And, you know, I got a guest coming on Monday. We're actually recording this in Rockfox Recording and Productions. That's where you've seen me do, you know, the more produced videos. I do them usually for, you know, guests that we can get in there. You know, I got Jen Sugarmeyer on there. And one of the things that she just put a video out here, she attests the fact she's a real tall girl. And when she was younger, she actually was researching ways to shave her feet down so she could be shorter. And then all these years later, she's so thankful there was no solution for that. But back then, she absolutely would have if she could have. But now she's thankful for who she is, her height, all she's accomplished, what she is as a human being, and what all those lessons taught her. I'm not saying it's the exact same thing, but the point is that you know, you're too young to make those decisions. All of these things out there, we all have opinions, and you probably, some of you watching, may have a different opinion than I do, and I'm totally fine with that. In so much you don't push it on my kids, then that's where we'll have a problem. And I really believe that's the way it should be. If you're messing with my family, stealing my wallet, or trying to push me out of the seat I'm in, then we got a problem. Outside of that, have at. Live your life. Do whatever you want to do. Just don't cross those lines. And I think that if we're all more comfortable with that, we're good. You know, guys, these are subjects that are a little tough because I do actually care about the well-being of people, and anybody on the other side of it that I felt like they were struggling. I actually, in my community, most don't believe the same way I do. And in fact, it's becoming more prevalent, especially when it comes to the God conversation. God can't possibly be here because of all this pain I'm feeling. And look at what my dad did to me, or this guy did to me. I even had a comment on a previous video I did several months ago. I just had a comment come up today, thanking me for my comments. I was basically going after two YouTubers that were battling about their view of God, and I thought it was just such a bad look for all of us to see guys that supposedly were talking about the goodness of God, and they were fighting on YouTube. And she said, yeah, absolutely, that you know, one of these preachers abused my child. You know, so we've got you know, there's a mess out here, and people, no matter what side you're on, you can find holes in the game. There's people that are problems all over the place. You know, we can disagree. You can not agree with me, and you and I can still be there to support each other. And we're in a world right now in the God conversation where people aren't really co-signing God because they can't understand how he could be here and all these things could be happening. I have a different view on that because when I needed something most, he was 100% there because I was looking. I wasn't still looking at me. I knew I was no longer the option. I was kind of screwing things. I wasn't kind of screwing things up. I burned it to the ground. I need the help now. And so I was fortunate enough that I had people in my life that showed me that option. You know, as we go through this season, here's the take home. Consider who's filling your head and getting you amped up. Is it somebody that's coming at you about your beliefs or their perception of your beliefs? If that's the case, why did it start in the first place? Did you post something on social media? Did you make a snide remark? Was it necessary? Did they post something on social media? Did you make a snide remark, or did you comment? Did you comment in a polite way? Did you start a debate? Was that debate necessary? I would argue that most of those debates are utterly pointless. They're two people trying to out bar chart each other and act like they're smarter than the other person based on their unique knowledge of the whole world because somehow they were there in every secret meeting that ever happened. Usually that's all it gets because everybody else is just like, whoa, I'm out of here. This is ridiculous. People don't even do popcorn on those anymore because they're getting so old. Let's think about how we're behaving. Let's not exhaust ourselves as we go through this season. It's no joke. These are serious issues. I'm not asking you to ignore them. I'm asking you to take your vote and go vote, and then let your life be your life. We can calm down this whole stinking world of mental health issues so we start focusing on our kids, start focusing on their well-being, and not this freaking free-for-all that we've created. Let's start putting some structures in. Start putting some objectives and goals. Start putting aspirational thoughts in their lives about what they could become. And not just have every single day dealing with whatever it is they're being told they must deal with today. Have people start thinking and dreaming, and not dreaming these ridiculous dreams. Putting plans of action in place to get there and showing them what hard work and progress can do. To me, that's a much better use of my time than sitting there and getting some pissing match with somebody that believes that some guy should shake his rear end in a dress in front of my kid. It's just not worth it to me because I know what I believe, and my kid isn't going to be in that room. Appreciate you guys. I really do. I'm so thankful for the support. Subscribers are starting to grow a little bit, little trickles. We're still small. Hopefully the word gets out and you guys we start ripping through some content here that you guys love. Please spread the word, like and subscribe, comment by all means. This one's I got a little bit more stuff in here that probably could fire up some people. Please comment. I'm cool with it. Be respectful, but guys, coming up in about a week and a half, you'll see the Jen Sugarmeyer interview, and I think it'll shed some interesting light on some of the topics I talked about today. But between now and then, please stay out of trouble.